Oh, you are hearing me? Okay. How is everybody doing this morning? How many of you guys are excited to be in church this morning, man? It is the first Sunday of 2020. I am souped. Man. 2019 is officially over as of like 4 days ago. I'm a little late. But 2020 is here. We have so much planned as a church, and I'm so excited. First and foremost, I want to welcome you guys to Ignite Church. I want to welcome our Instagram and our Facebook Live audience. Hello. Welcome to the chaos. This is where God just comes and moves, man. We're just here. We just allow God to do what he wants because we don't really have an agenda anymore. We're like, whatever, God. For those of you guys that don't know, didn't hear from the video, my name is Mike Sunbury. I'm not the pastor here. For those of you that don't know, he's a lot more fit than I am, and he's shorter, but that's okay. Our pastor is actually away he's doing a 40-day fast. He's going to be gone for 60 days in total. He is doing no food whatsoever, just water. I can't do 2 hours without food. So 40 days, like you have to be graced with something seriously special in order to do that. So our pastor is going sacrificing food for 40 days to get closer to God so that he could get vision on where to take our church. And I don't know a lot of other leaders that would go about that. I'm not saying that there aren't any out there, but I am saying that I'm lucky to have one. So we're going to be praying for him in a little bit as well. So for those of you, again, that don't know, I'm the worship director here. I am a father as well of a little, almost 3-year-old. She is almost 3, and I can't deal with it. We are, what's today, the 5th? 9 days away, she's going to be 3. And it seems like just yesterday, she was just born, and I was taking a couple weeks off. So, whatever. I'm also married to my lovely wife, Becky, over there. She's awesome. She came over and she prays for me. Every time I preach, she comes over and she prays for me. And I just feel like this immense energy come about when she starts praying for me. So that's how, simmer down. But to me, that's how you know it's a God relationship, you know? When you have your significant other there and you guys start going about seeking God and going about spiritual things and you just start to feel energized, you know you're with the right partner there. So there you go. As you guys can see, I don't know if you can see, I told you guys last time I was preaching that my wife promised to get me a MacBook for Christmas. Yeah. And that she was like stuck to it now because it was on the interwebs. It was on everybody here. Boom! Got it. She came through with her promise. She's great. All right. So, as Kevin said again before, this is our Come Alive series. We thought, what better way to start January than to come alive? All the chaos of 2019, let's just put it aside. And for the first month, let's just focus on coming to life. Let's move forward. So, I want to read out of Acts 20 real quick. It says, on the first day of the week, when we were together to break bread, Paul began talking to them, intending to leave the next day, and he prolonged his message until midnight. There were many lamps in the upper room where we were gathered together. And there was a young man named Eutychus, sitting on the windowsill, sinking into a deep sleep. And as Paul kept on talking, he was overcome by sleep and fell down from the 3rd floor and was picked up dead. Just note there, Eutychus has become the first person in history to be bored to death. That's where the phrase came from. He got so bored he fell out the window and died. Sorry, that's probably not what happened. I just made that up. So for those of you guys that thought that was real Bible, I'm so sorry for confusing you. That's not real. He did fall out the window, but that's not where that phrase. Okay, we're going to move on. So, but Paul went down and fell upon him. And after embracing him, he said, do not be troubled, for his life is in him. When he had gone back up and had broken the bread and eaten, he talked with them for a long while until daybreak and then left. They took away the boy alive and were greatly comforted. So I just want to pray real quick. God, I thank you for all that you're doing here, God. I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to preach your word, God, allowing me to be a vessel for you, my God. I just surrender this service entirely to you. Let it not be my words, God. Let it be totally and completely you. And God, I also want to pray for those of us in the military, God, in our armed services. As we're in a chaotic time right now. So right now, I want you to be with not only our soldiers and our military that are overseas, God, and the ones here, God, but their families as well. God, just give them peace and protection throughout this crazy time, God. We know ultimately, no matter how it looks on the outside, your plan is still in session. You're still moving. Even when we don't see it, you're working. So even when it looks like we've taken a couple steps back or it seems like we're going the wrong direction, we know that it's still your plan, God. So just give us that peace and that comfort to deal with this, God. In Jesus' name, amen. So, we're back. So, I don't know, how many of you guys have grown up in church? Cool, a whole two of you guys. I love that, by the way. I love that. This makes it so much easier for me. I don't know why. But for those of you guys that grew up in church, like I did, I'm one of those people as well. You guys have probably experienced a super long-winded sermon. And don't say it's one of mine here, because mine are super fast. As a matter of fact, I have a Saints game at 1 o'clock, so your boy needs to be gone. We got playoffs, baby. Let's go. All right, so you just mad the Jets aren't in it. That's okay. It's okay. The Patriots lost, though, so that right there is how you know God is alive. Amen. All right, I'm sorry, super carnal here. I can't do this. So anyway, if you've grown up in church, you've experienced a long-winded sermon. Now, when I was younger, see, the verse says here that they came together to break bread. That means to eat. The whole point of them getting together was to eat. Now me, when I was younger, at my old church, there was like a Dunkin' Donuts over there. There was like buffet over there, Chinese. So for me, after service, we'd go out to eat. So if you've reached a point in time in the service where you've been preaching for probably about an hour, you lost me. All I am thinking about is that food now. Now, Eutychus is a young guy. I was a young guy. So, for me, I feel like I can relate to him here. The whole point of him getting here is to eat. And now this guy is talking for hours. Like, all right, so say typical dinner time is about 6, 7 o'clock. It's 4:30 for some people, 8:30 for other people. But let's just say average time, 6, 7 o'clock. This is going on like 5 or 6 hours now, because he said he's preaching until midnight. This dude hasn't eaten yet. Now me. Nah, now you just became the enemy. You are standing between me and my food. You don't do that. If anybody here knows me, don't even think about it. Don't ask me for a French fry. Don't ask me for a chicken nugget. I'm bad when I have my food. Imagine when I don't have my food. There are times me and Becky will argue, and she'll be like, babe, did you eat? I'll be like, you know what? I'm like the poster boy for the Snickers commercial. I swear to God. Poster boy over here. You're not you when you're hungry. I'm not me when I'm hungry. So that frustration starts to set in. See, because now Eutychus has somebody standing in the way of what he thought he was going to be getting. Have you guys ever been told something by God or by a prophet, and there's just things that keep getting in the way? That's a little frustrating, right? For me, you start to get really irritated. And now you just start to wonder, like, was that really God, though? Or was that just you trying to make me feel good? Or am I really called to do this? Or am I just kind of here? Like, am I just good at it so people say I'm called to do it? I've been there a million times. So sometimes when we're expecting something from God in our lives, and it takes longer than we expected, we tend to fall into my first point. Spiritual sleep. That right there is what happened with Eutychus. So if we read verse 9 again, it says, and there was a young man named Eutychus sitting on the windowsill, sinking into a deep sleep. And as Paul kept on talking, he was overcome by sleep and fell down from the 3rd floor and was picked up dead. He was overcome by that sleep. He allowed something natural to overcome him. And we do that a lot as human beings. We're fleshly people. That's what we do. We're here. Whatever. But he allowed it to overcome him, and then he fell. So, for me, he didn't necessarily go about trying to get the food. You know what I mean? He was there to eat. And now he's in the third story. He's not just trying to sneak. Now, if it were me, I'd be sneaking around, the food's over here, you keep talking over there, I'm gonna go sneak a cracker over here, and maybe a little grape over here. But some of us are just like that. We get so mad when these prophetic words or these things that are spoken of our life don't come to pass, but we don't do anything to push it forward. For instance, if I get told at a young age, and I said this last time too, when you grow up in church, you've been prophesied over 5,000 times. So if I've been prophesied over that I'm going to lead worship in front of stadiums of people, and I sit on my couch all day, and I don't go deeper in my relationship with God, or I don't attempt to master my craft, so to speak, or work on my gifting, empower my gifting, it's not God being a liar. It's me not believing it. It's me not pushing it forward. And some of us get so upset with God when it's our own fault. And I know we don't like to hear that. I totally get it. This isn't it's not encouraging to start the year. I apologize. But some of us just get so upset with it when it's our own doing. We got to look in the mirror. What? If they said that we're supposed to be doing this within the next year or two, that year or two passes and it didn't happen, have you reflected on yourself? Or have you just completely, maybe that wasn't God? Do you just throw it out? Do you just throw it out like it made no sense, or it wasn't really God, or it wasn't really his plan, or whatever? Or do you reflect and be like, well, did I actually do everything that I could to make that happen? Or did I do everything did I take advantage of all the opportunities God put in front of me? Or did I just kind of sit there and let it chill? And some of us, we get so upset with God that starts to turn into contempt. We start to get angry. And then that leads to the spiritual sleep right there. It leads to that disconnect. How many of you guys have been talking to somebody, a significant other or a potential boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and then they do something wrong, and then you stop texting? Or gradually dwindles back and forth. It gradually dwindles day by day. So you go from we text every single day. We text all day, every day. The moment I wake up, baby, love you. I had cereal. I want pizza. I know, that's why I'm doing it. That's what Becky does. She's baby, I had pizza. So you go from talking like that, right? And then all of the sudden, I say something wrong that Becky doesn't agree with. I'm not saying this happens, by the way, with us. I'm just using this as an example. Stop it. Not saying this is what happens. But anyway, so boom, we text, right? We're just starting our relationship. We text. I'm completely infatuated with her. She's completely infatuated with me. Boom. How could you not be? So, I'm sorry. I can't be serious for 5 minutes. It's terrible. So, all of a sudden I say something. She gets a little upset by it. So now our texting every day has turned into maybe she'll respond and maybe she won't. Or we'll text every other day. Then gradually that'll turn into maybe once a week, once a month. Before I know it, 2 years have gone by and we haven't spoken since. How many of us allow that to happen with God? We get so upset when we think God has told us to do this, or we think God has called us to do this, and then something doesn't happen the way we want it to. So we go from warring and praying all hours of the day for an hour, 2, 3 hours at a time in our prayer closet, drool all over the place, sticky notes of our goals all in the closet, absolute chaos in there, spiritual chaos, which, is nice, to all of a sudden, it didn't work out the way you wanted, and then you go to praying maybe like once a day, maybe once a week. All of a sudden, you went from having 20 stickies on your wall to like one. You maybe talk to God once a month when you remember in the car on the way to work because you almost hit something. So now it's like, oh, God, yes, you saved me from that. I love you. But then another month goes by and no near-death experiences happen, so you completely forget he's there. So you allow yourself to fall into that spiritual sleep. You allow yourself to disconnect. And before you know it, you've gone a whole year, and you can't even remember when the last time you prayed was or what it was about. All because things didn't look the way we thought it should. And we allowed that to affect the inside, and we fell asleep. So a big thing for myself, and a big thing of what we're trying, myself and Kevin and Nay, what we're trying to do with the worship team is to be completely spirit-driven. So we talk about it before every Sunday, every time we meet up, like, God, we don't want our agenda whatsoever. We want it to just be totally what you want. And I said it before, if that means it's just Dom playing one string on a bass for 45 minutes, if that's what God wants, that's just what you do, and he's just going to wreck everybody from it. So for me, I'm totally bent on being spirit-driven. But you can't be spirit-driven if your spirit is asleep. We're a spirit-driven church. We can't drive anywhere if we're asleep. Have you ever tried to drive a car that was in neutral? So have I. By accident, I missed the D. I went to smack the gear shift, and I didn't smack it hard enough, and it stopped at the end, and then, but I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm trying, I'm hitting the gas, the car is on, I'm hitting the gas, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm not in drive. There's no gas, there's no power going to my engine because I'm disconnected from it. And some people are living a neutral life like that. You know how you can tell those people? Sorry to blow up your spot if you're here. I don't know. But those are the people, when you're in neutral, you make a whole lot of noise and you go nowhere. You ever just sit there and just rev the engine on the gas? You'll go absolutely nowhere, but you'll make a crap ton of noise. And everybody will come out complaining about it. But that's a sign. That's a sign. So for me, reflect on yourself real quick. Am I making a whole lot of noise and not going anywhere? Because if that's the case, if I'm like going crazy after God, going crazy for this and this, and nothing is happening, maybe I'm disconnected somewhere. And you know what else happens when you're in neutral? I got this the other day. You let the terrain determine where you go. You let the road determine where you go. So I could be driving, facing uphill, slamming the gas as much as I want. I'll be making a whole lot of noise, but I'll just be rolling backwards. Or the other way, if I'm going downhill, I could be hitting reverse, or I could be trying to go backwards all I want, slamming on the gas, and I'm just going to keep rolling. Just keep rolling. And if it's just flat land, I'll go nowhere. You start to allow the situation around you, the atmosphere that's around you, the terrain that's around you, the road that's there, now has hold on the direction that you go. It has hold on the direction that you go. It has hold on the speed that you go. It takes complete control, like you have nothing. And that is because you're disconnected. If you connect, you're in complete control. You choose when you go, choose when you don't go. As a matter of fact, have you ever been in drive, been on a hill going uphill, and just let go of the brake, didn't even touch the gas, and you still don't go anywhere? Hello. All from being connected. One thing is connected there, and it changes the whole way the car drives. If somebody's a mechanic, don't tell me I'm wrong. Please wait until later and tell me I'm wrong. But Becky's stepdad is a mechanic. I can already see him watching this going, that's not how that works whatsoever. He's going to text me later. But in my mind, it's just one thing. It's just being connected. That's it. Do you know how to wake up? Like, it's the craziest thing. So this is my second point. This is how you can wake back up from your spiritual sleep right here. Bang. The embrace. It's so crazy because Kevin was talking about this back there before, and he had no idea where I was going here. He was giving this as a devo to the worship team, and I just stared at him. I was like, he was like, you got something? I was like, no. You just gave me something. I just jumped over here, started typing. So verse 10, it says, but Paul went down, fell upon him, and after embracing him, that's where I want to stop right there. After embracing him, to me, that illustrates the Father's embrace there. Ooh. After embracing him, how many times have we fallen and been just woken up by a hug? I can't tell you, man, the best mornings I have is when Addison rolls over, hugs me, and goes, Daddy, my wake up. She's got no grammar, but you tell her, no, you're not. She goes, yes, my are. And I'm like, okay, who am I to argue with that? But the best thing for me is that embrace, and you can see it in her eyes that there's nothing like the Father's embrace to her. When I'm holding her, when I'm hugging her, it doesn't matter where you are spiritually or mentally or physically. That embrace there changes everything. Like, this dude is seemingly dead. Paul didn't call any medics. Paul didn't call any doctors. He didn't call 911 because there was none. But all he did was run over and embrace him. He laid on top of him. He covered him all the way. Paul went down, fell on top of him, and embraced him. And to me, I'm looking at God and I'm like, this is exactly what you do to me. How many times do I fall and I feel like I'm spiritually asleep? I feel like I'm dead. And you just cover me. That's it. He just covers me. He just lays on top and he's like, don't worry, I got you. And then he wraps me up and he goes, I got you and I'm not letting go. There's a song, it's called History, that Maverick City does. And when they get to the point where they start saying, he says, I'm never going to let you go, that to me did a lot for me. And that's like, it may not do the same for everybody else, but how many times I've tried to pull away? Because sometimes we fall spiritually asleep on purpose. How many times did I do that? And God was like, I'm not going to let you go. And I didn't realize it until now, until like 5 minutes ago. How many times have I been offended by something and I tried to leave or I tried to disconnect and God was like, no. You're not disconnecting anywhere. You're staying right here. And it's not, I don't believe he did it because of the effect I could have on other people. And a lot of people say, like, he saved you because, you are going to affect the nations, you're going to do that. And that might very well be true. I'm not saying that that's not true. But for me, he's never going to let me go just because of who I am and who he is, who I am to him. It doesn't matter if I'm going to affect 4 people. If my entire life, all I do is affect change in one person, God still loves me the same amount that he loves the people affecting thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. He still has that same desire for the embrace. If I fall spiritually asleep, to him it's the same as Stephen Furtick or Brian Houston or Rick Pino or a whole bunch of really famous people. So, but to him, he doesn't see that. What he sees each and every time is son, daughter, son, daughter, daughter, son. Like, don't be asleep, because if you're asleep, you can't take what I have. If I throw something at you, you can't catch it. I'm giving you all these gifts. You can't catch them if you're asleep, so wake up. And while we're down there, what I love is that he didn't pick him up. He left him there. He laid on top of him and just embraced him where he was at. And I feel like that's God telling a lot of you guys, like, just stay for a second. Let me embrace you where you're at. Oh, that was good. That wasn't, I had none of that in my notes. It just all, so now I don't know where I'm at. But if you think about it, the embrace changing the game. Look at the prodigal son. The prodigal son was the same way. When he came home, the father ran to embrace him. And if you look at the similarities between the two, it's just like I said. He went to them. He met them where they were at. He saw the son coming home, and he darted after him and gave him a hug. Here, Eutychus is laying on the ground, seemingly dead, and he ran and laid on top of him and embraced him where he was. The importance of that is, like, I don't have words for it. Like, it's where you guys are at. Where you're at mentally, where you think you're at spiritually, where you think you're at emotionally. Like, he's ready. His arms are open. Like, just allow it. Just allow it to come in. So I looked up the benefits of hugs because my wife, like, needs hugs constantly. And she's like, it's good for you. And I'm like, no, it makes no sense. It does. It's good for you. I was wrong. So it actually says here, hugs help with sickness, helps get rid of fear, it brings happiness, and it actually lessens physical pain. Just from a hug. Like, just from that embrace there, like, a hug just seems super simple. But little do you know that inside, God is hugging you, and there's pain that's being healed. There's, like, sickness that's being healed. Some of you guys are, like, suffering from headaches that are healed with just an embrace. That's it. Like, all it takes is an embrace. Some of you guys suffer from anxiety or fear. Right there, that embrace there, a hug, a simple hug, helps that. So imagine the hug from the Father. A hug from a human does that. If I hug you, that just made you happier. That just helped with fear. Can you imagine the Father of all creation, the Almighty God, what happens when he hugs you? Like, I'm just some chunky 26-year-old white dude. Like, my hugs don't mean much except for my wife and my daughter, and that's okay. But still, it's affecting you. Can you just imagine if you got that hug? Oh, man. Look at Psalm 91, verse 4. It says, he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. Cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you're going to find refuge. For those of you that don't know, birds, if you don't know birds, their wings are their arms. That's what they do. So he's going to cover you, and you're going to hide under his wing, right here, in a hug, in an embrace. Yeah. And that's all he wants from you. Just allow that hug. Just allow that embrace. This is actually what Kev spoke about here. Psalm 1, verse 3. I didn't give it to him because I literally just put it in my notes. But it's talking about a tree. We are like a tree being deeply rooted, deeply planted. And now one translation talks about being rooted so deep that the roots actually curl up. Can I have a volunteer? Christian, can I borrow you? I was thinking about him this morning when I woke up. I was like, I hope he's there because I'm gonna embarrass him and bring him up here. Hey, bro. Come up here real quick. How you doing? Give me 5. Don't leave me hanging on live TV here. All right. So this is Christian, everybody, for those of you guys that don't know. So now, it says that you want to be you're so deeply rooted that the roots actually curl. So watch this. The roots curl here, or the roots curl right here. Here is the embrace right here. He wants us to be so deeply rooted. Sorry if that is a little weird. So you see? And now look at what happens. You start a hug, and then they hug back. Think about that. But he wants you to be so deeply rooted. That root curls. And what it does is it forms that embrace. It forms that hug right there for us to be totally connected with God so that things can be healed. There you go. You're good. Thanks, bro. I appreciate you. Man. So this is my last point here. So what happens after the embrace? Go ahead and put it up, Amy. The awakening. This word is a word that I've had. So since we found out what this series was, and I was told I was preaching this day, I've been freaking out ever since, because the first service of the new year, and I'm like, that's mad pressure, dude. Like, that sets the tempo for the whole church, and like, nah, I'm not good for it. So I was like freaking out. But the only word that kept coming to me for literally a month was awakening. And I thought I was going to preach on just awakening, and then it turned into all this. But awakening. And I feel like there's going to be a new awakening in 2020. If you look over at verse 10, after this embrace, verse 10, the same one we were on before. Yeah, it's the second half of that, sorry. It says, after embracing him, he said, do not be troubled, for his life is in him. So, even though the flesh looked dead, even though everybody counted him out as dead, even though from an outsider's perspective, Eutychus now had nothing left to offer, Paul reminds everybody that the life is in him. It's inside of him. It's not what you see on the outside. It's what God put on the inside. And I feel like a lot of us are in seemingly dead situations, or it seems as though we're not doing anything. It seems as though we're stagnant. And I think God wants to remind you today that although on the outside it doesn't look like everything is coming together, the life that I've put is on the inside of you. The life on the inside is what determines whether you're alive or dead, not what everybody sees on the outside. How many times on the news you see somebody involved in some crazy accident and they look all mangled up, but they're alive? I've been there. Like, not physically. Spiritually, I've been there. I've been spiritually and emotionally banged up. I'm talking about in my body parts all over the place, spiritually. But life was still inside. Although we can't see it, we can still live it. Like, you still have to live with that same zeal. Like, it's in me. There's nowhere, since it's in me, no matter where I go, it follows me because it's here. I have these shoes on. If I'm walking here and if I walk to the back, my shoes aren't going to stay here. They're going to come with me. My tattoos, this ink is inside my body. So I can go all the way back home to Elizabeth. My tattoos won't stay here because this is in me. See, the life that God has put in you follows you everywhere. So although you're at the club on Tuesday and then at worship on Thursday, the life is still in you. Although you may have had a slip up over here with your relationship and a little affair over there, the life is still in you. That doesn't change the fact that the life is there. It doesn't matter. Again, the outside. The outside is not what determines life or death. The inside is what determines life or death. What are you allowing inside to stop that? What are you saying is okay that's more important than the life that's in you? What are you allowing to overshadow that? Because the life is there regardless, no matter what you let in. But sometimes, you know how an eclipse works? You have the sun, and then the moon goes in front of it. You can't see it for a minute. Sometimes, that's the life in us. Sometimes we allow something to just cross over, and then we can't see it. And then we think we're dead. And what happens when we think we're dead? We die. Like we start to act on what we think. As a man thinks, so is he. So if I think I'm dead because I don't see life coming, then I'm going to start acting that way. And sorry, this is just totally off what I was talking about. So I think that this morning, can you guys just stand to your feet for a second? We're not going to go right into worship. Not right into worship yet. But I believe there's a lot of people here that are recognizing that they've allowed that to happen. They're recognizing that maybe it wasn't that God left me. Maybe it wasn't that God stopped talking to me. Maybe it was I allowed something to cover up the life that's here, so I disconnected myself. And you know the importance of community? Look around you. Look around you. Everybody look around. Some of you are just staring at me. Look around. Look around. Everybody here. The importance of the community. At the end of that story, it says that they picked up the boy and were greatly comforted. They picked up the boy, they took him away alive, and were greatly comforted. This is the importance of the people around you. See, at first, they counted him out. It took one person, it took Paul, to look and say, no, life is in there. After it took just that one person, the entire community grabbed him and celebrated and was comforted. There's a possibility that you're feeling dead right now and you're feeling totally out of it. One, God's not going to let you go, like I said. But two, there's an entire group of people that are waiting to be comforted by you coming back to life, by the life coming back into you. Those people are waiting because when you see that somebody else can have this done, you start to know and think about it being done for you. You start to see when somebody else gets healed of cancer, you start to think, oh, wow, I don't have to deal with headaches. This person was healed with cancer. When you see somebody get shot and God kept them safe and they're completely healed, you start to think, oh, man, like my knee pain, that like God did that. He can definitely do this. Like it starts to put in perspective on how boundless and how powerful God is. Because what he does, he doesn't pick and choose who is more important. He doesn't have favorites. So when you start to see that he does it in somebody else, I feel like we fall into, when he's doing it for somebody else, we fall into the why not me? And let me tell you now, that's a spiritually asleep mentality. That's an asleep mentality. You literally are sleeping at the wheel. When you start to see these people around you succeeding, it's not a downer on you because you're doing something wrong or because you're not called. All that is saying, don't worry, you're next. Like, I got you next. And I feel like we fall into that a lot. And you know what that does? That builds that resentment towards the people. And then that builds the resentment towards God. And then we fall into spiritual sleep. And you know what happens? It turns into a cycle, guys. It turns into a cycle. So you not only start to feel that way with God, you start to feel that way with people. So you disconnect from people. You disconnect from family. You disconnect from coworkers. Just because we allow ourselves to be envious of what God has done. Rather than being comforted, rather than being happy about what God is doing for your family, we're brothers and sisters here. If my brother went and got a $150,000 a year job, I'm not mad at him. I'm happy for him. We're all brothers and sisters here, guys. When one person succeeds, it's not because you're failing. It's not because they're better or, because people are looking at them cool. Who cares? So all over this room, man, if you guys feel like at some point in time you've fallen spiritually asleep at the wheel. And you want that embrace? Because I think 2019, we fell asleep. If I could be honest with you, we fell asleep. I fell asleep for sure. And I think 2020, this Sunday right here in 2020, is going to be marked in history in your minds, because this is going to be the day when you wake up and stay awake. We're not going to allow that sleep to come back. We're not going to be sleeping at the wheel while we're driving. We're not going to be stuck in neutral. So all over this room, just lift your hands right now. My God, we love you. We thank you, God. God, I just pray that you change our mentalities, my God. You embrace us. Bring us in, God. You never let us go, God. Change our mentality. Change our perspective, God, to see that if you did it before, you'll do it again. That's all that means, is if you did it before, you're going to do it again. Come on, all over this room. Give Jesus a shout. Come on, come on. By your spirit.